Welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora from inside of the Cafe Cubal studios. In our exclusive multimedia marketing partnership with the Marywood Pacers, we have the opportunity every Friday around 10:30 a.m. Eastern time to feature a special opportunity with student athletes, coaches, and administration all throughout the year. We're here with Kerrie Brown, the Marywood Pacers women's lacrosse head coach. Kerrie, how you doing?
Doing well. How are you?
I'm doing very well. And Kerrie, after wrapping up this season here recently, just what your overall takeaways were from this year's campaign?
Oh, it was a big year of growth. We had a small team, but I've said from the beginning, like our core was really, really tight. But like as far as team camaraderie and everything, the girls really found their fight towards the end of the year. And we came up short, but I think like the attitudes for the future are really, really bright. And that's positive. And so you never like to lose as a coach and as an athlete, but they understood kind of the bigger picture and where we were going. Looking forward to our 2022-23 campaign. So probably not the most successful year that I've ever had, but really a bright spot as far as building our structure and our foundation moving forward.
And when you talk about, building a structure moving forward, building a foundation, building something for you to go through the growing pains of this season to get to where you believe this team can be, just what you could say to that effect, because we live in what a lot of people call a microwave society where, a minute is too long to get something done. So when you know that you have to build and you have to grow and you have to put those pieces together in a season like this season so that down the road this team can have sustained success, how do you navigate through that? And how do you have that conversation with your team saying, hey, I know that it may hurt now, we may struggle now, but we're building to be somewhere in the future?
I think it was a lot of soul searching. I think it was a lot of leaning on my leadership, my older, my like upperclassmen. It's been a rough couple of years. And so I think like kids, I really do still call them kids, even though they're 18 to 22. They didn't realize like how hard, life was and just kind of the balance of everything. So we had some like main focuses of like our work ethic and, supporting each other and getting back into like live classrooms and stuff like that and just back to norm. And so we had a shorter season, a smaller season still, like only had 15 games. I can have 17 games. So it was kind of like putting all the building blocks in order and just kind of getting after them every day at practice and having them kind of get at each other to compete. And they did that. And they worked really hard and just kind of like proving like where they want to go and having good conversations about like, okay, we're doing this because of this. Okay, like this isn't fun, but we're in the right place. And really it was like attitude check. I don't have bad attitudes, but it was like personally, like everybody kind of has to like check it at the door and kind of realize that like, okay, this is what we're doing and this is how it's going to go. And we're going to kind of battle through together. And they really stuck together well. They never turned on each other, which is a huge thing because I think it's really easy, especially for females, to sometimes point the finger. And so I just talked with them about like, hey, we're not going to point the finger unless we're pointing at ourselves. And they did a nice job with it. And so, and likewise, and they know that there's a big class coming in behind them. So they're ready to work this summer. And I'm excited for that fall class to kind of come in and bump our numbers again and go from there.
You said that the team had to lean on your leadership this season. How would you describe yourself as a leader, and how did you react to a team needing direction from you and really at times needing hope and saying, coach, where do we go from here?
Yeah. So sometimes I'm really like tough on my kids and sometimes I'm like their biggest ally. And that's the one thing that they had to realize that like I'm here as their support. So I'm not always going to say the things they want to hear, but I'm going to say the things that they need to hear and really go from there. But they just kind of like with each other as well. Like, when I would, scream and yell, maybe not say the things they want to hear, they kind of got together and they were like, okay, this is what she means. Or when I was being like too nice, they'd be like, okay, like this is what we're not doing. And so I think it was just like that offset that they did a really nice job with. So, it was a battle, but I'm excited. I'm excited to see their personal growth as a bunch of young ladies like moving on and moving upward. So that's kind of what we talked about a lot as well. So like lacrosse is just a microcosm of what we really want out of Marywood and not out of our college education and kind of moving forward. And so I would try and find a lot of positives. I would still make sure that they understood what standards were set and what my expectations were. But, it was super positive situation that,
I didn't get that. Could you try?
that I really, really focused on with them for the remainder of the season. So they were good about it. They were really, really good, and they band together pretty well.
Speaking here with Kerrie Brown, the head coach of the Marywood Pacers women's lacrosse team. Kerrie, you said that this team, we're not going to point fingers at each other. We're going to point them at ourselves. You can say that and have a team not do that at all. I mean, you could try to establish that and then see that it doesn't work. Why did this group of young women react in the way that you wanted? I mean, I know that nobody's perfect, and I'm sure that there's, adverse moments, but when you said we're going to point the fingers at ourselves, why did this team do that? What is it about their maturity, about their personal responsibility, about the makeup and just the chemistry of this team, that when you said, hey, we can't be going after each other, that it actually worked, that they didn't?
Well, I think it was like a twofold. So one, there were so many chinks in the armor, right, from everyone, including myself, that it was like, okay, so we're just going to start tearing it apart. But two, there was a lot of honest conversations throughout the year that I had with multiple players, with my leaders, with my underclassmen, about what they needed to be done, about how they were perceived. We did a lot of reality first perception and a lot of individual meetings, a lot of tears, but also like a lot of thoughtful conversations about, who we are, who you are, who I am. What are your expectations? What are my expectations? Like, where do we meet? And so we had like a lot of really good life conversations, because at points, when you win your first 3 games and life's going good, and then you lose your next 3 games, right? Then it's like, whoa, the world's falling, right? Little Chicken Little, and it's really not. And so we had some really good conversations, mid-year meetings about like, what do you think? Where do you think? And some honest conversations that, like, just because I tell you what you don't want to hear doesn't mean that I don't like you as a human, or that you can't change it. I'm just here to help you change, or to get more out of whatever you're doing that's positive. Like, we need more of that. So I think just the call to task, but they were really like honest and open about conversations. And again, it was a personal growth this year. It wasn't so much lacrosse that I was focused on. I knew, with only 12 around the field, like smallest team I've ever coached, like it was going to be a personal growth year, about what you can do, to help yourself, and then how that reflects with your team and what's going on. And so stuff like that. So we had a really good year of, personal growth, personal battles, and then it reflected on the lacrosse field.
And you spoke about having a small roster, smallest you've ever had, a less than 15 student athletes. Just bring me into the last couple of years and dealing with the pandemic and not being able to play, and then trying to put a team together, just how the very unique circumstances that we live in kind of dictated a very unique set of circumstances as a coach that you had to live in, and how you've navigated through the fact that things out of your control have obviously affected college athletics at every level. And we've seen it here with Marywood University. So just how you've dealt with that, and just what your takeaway has been from the last couple of years when you're trying to live a normal life and create a normal team and a system that you have. And obviously there's things out of your control that have gone against that.
Yeah. Like, the one thing that COVID is really kind of shown me is, like, people, if they don't have to do, they don't want to do in certain points. So I've lost a couple student athletes just because being a student athlete at Division III and not being paid is hard, right? It's a hard thing. It's a lot of dedicated hours, and it's a lot of stuff. And so they don't have to do it. They found fun with their friends, and they can go do other things. Typically like extracurricular things that, really don't have the memories that college athletics have. And they didn't value or realize that. And so that was a huge thing. Like, I just had a bunch of girls on campus that just didn't want to play, because practicing 5 to 6 days a week for 2 hours, and only having this many games and not having spring break and all these different things was hard. And so my kids that stuck through and battled the hard ones are like awesome. And I'm proud of, because those are going to be our people looking forward, that are going to kind of carry the world on their shoulders. And so, I've had a couple kids, asked to want to come back, and the conversation's open, the door's open, but you have a little bit of proving to do to these kids that wanted to battle and fight. And I'm not saying that I won't ever give you an opportunity. I'm always going to give people an opportunity. I'm always going to give people a second chance, but just know it's cautious. And that I've got people that are hungry and want to come in. I've got a great freshman class that wants to come in and kind of compete and fight. And they realize kind of what they missed out on. So I think, COVID has had our world miss out on a lot of things. And some people have chosen the fork in the road that's just a little bit easier. It's not always the fun one. And then other people have chose to battle. And I like those battle kids, because I think battle tested kids are your D3 kids that want to fight and compete and understand the values of sports and teammates, and growth, and kind of want to have that, mentorship, and those are the kids that they're going to be the awesome employees. Like they're going to be the ones that, really succeed higher. The other ones will have jobs and they'll work and they'll be great. But like I want my kids when they graduate here to be equipped to get promotions and advocate for themselves and learn about personal growth. And that's kind of the fun of, small D3. That's the fun of Marywood and the personal education that you can get. And that's kind of where I'm at with my kids. But they saw it, and they saw some of those kids, like, they're like, oh, when we're out or when we see them, they're like, oh yeah, I want to come back and play. And they're like, oh, do you? Well, call coach. They don't call coach, like, because they don't have it in them. They don't have the it factor. And so it's like, I'm all set. Like, I don't need it. I got exactly what I need in front of me, and they battled hard, and I'm proud of them. And I'm really excited to where they're going to take this program in the future.
How do you coach in a world where within the last couple of years, it's really revealed, like you said, the people that want to do it and the people that, don't really have it in them, or if they are hit with some adversity, it's like, I'll do something else. How do you coach in a world where we've kind of realized, and I'm realizing, and really people all over the world are realizing, that there's people that you may have inside as student athletes, as assistant coaches, as people, employees in your business, that don't want to do it, or want something to be easy, or want something to be handed to them. How have you navigated through saying, hey, listen, if you're going to be here, you got to put the work in? Because I feel like, if anything, the last 2 years has really exposed the people that don't want to do the work and don't want to take the responsibility.
Yeah, John Gordon has a really good book called The Energy Bus. And I've read it a couple times. It's a great book. And I'm all about getting on the bus and riding, and not so much about the energy vampire. So if you're going to be an energy vampire, keep it pushing. I don't have time, and I don't have effort for you. So we really talk about that. And then we also talk about like feeding the positive dog. Like, so feed the dog that wants to be in the fight. Don't feed the dog that's on the outside, chirping. So those are the two things I talk about with my girls all the time. And they joke about it and they laugh about it, but it's the truth. And I think it reiterates kind of where they are. So your energy is a huge thing that you bring. And so whatever energy that you bring is kind of where I'm going to meet you. I coach the majority. Somebody doesn't want to jump on the bus, and like, okay, the bus is going to keep moving. And if you want to get on another stop, then let's go. And if not, then like the bus does pass by the bus stop, and that's fine. And it's absolutely fine that it passes by the bus stop. You can meet us at another bus stop, or maybe you don't meet us at all and you never get back on the bus. And that's fine, because I'll find kids that want to ride. And so we talk a lot about that with the girls, and they do a nice job with it. So, but I think that's myself as a coach as well. Like, I've matured over the years, like, and I bring a lot of energy, but like, I also am going to match exactly what they need when they need it. And try and like meet them where they are, so that we can get us to where we're going.
Yeah, coming here from Kerrie Brown, the Marywood Pacers women's lacrosse head coach. Before I let you go, Kerrie, you spoke about the season and an interesting way that the season went here. You won your first 3 games, then you won 2 out of 3 at the end of the regular season. What was it about the bookends that you feel like went right when there was those losses in between?
I mean, honestly, it was kind of like the dogs in the fight. Right at the end, we just ran out of bodies. I had a girl break a nose. And so we only had 13 going into our championship game, or not, or into our conference championships. And so I think it was just a fight. Some games we could sustain it, some games we couldn't. It all kind of depended on where we could get out early in the game and kind of maintain. But, we ran out of legs at the end of the season, it is what it is. But they know that they can win games. Like, that was the key out of this, is like, if you guys play, you can win games. And so that's kind of what we took going forward, that they like know that they're competitive enough. They have the skill enough. It's just, how we sustain it going for 60 minutes. And we really learned that you got to battle for 6 games or 60 minutes at the end of the day. It doesn't matter. So that was kind of one of the takeaways, like, all right, here are a couple things that we need to do to maintain for 60 minutes. And that was the soul searching. And so, right at the end at Immaculata, we started to make a comeback, ran out of time, having that one more person, or, not just turning the ball over because you were tired and didn't want to go over the restraining line. Like, that's some soul searching. That's like, do you have the 3 yards in you? And the ownership, like they took ownership. It was because at one point I could call timeouts, but I only have 3 timeouts. So it's like, guys, at this point, like, I'm on the sideline. I'll give you the game plan. I'll give you everything you need, but I'm on the sideline. I can't get on the field with you and physically do these things for you. And so they realized it and they learned it. And when we ran out of time right at the end, they were like, okay, like, these are things that need to be cleaned up. And coach tells us these things are important, but then like saw it live in living color. So, it's kind of one of those things as well.
Yeah. And seeing how close it was, like you said, running out of bodies at the end, just how close the game was for you in the Atlantic East playoffs here in the postseason against Immaculata at Immaculata 9-7. What are the biggest positives you take away from that game, and how hard the team fought despite everything this season, despite having a smaller roster, despite injuries? What did this team show you in that 9-7 loss where you ran out of time?
Like, the thing is, when we play our game, we score goals or we make great saves. Our goalie had like 12 saves. I don't even know if their goalie had a save. So it's like, when we get in and we do what we're supposed to do, we are successful. It's from us more between the restraining lines. It's the fitness factor. It was the bodies factor. It was the taking care of the ball. It wasn't when we're in our sets or when we're passing and catching, it's the taking care of the ball and really valuing possessions and stuff like that. So they knew when we got into sets, they're like, okay, we're fine. But it was like when they were tired, kind of like managing their brains. And your brain is a hard thing to manage. It's a tricky place up there between the ears. And so, but when we got into things and when they were determined to do things, they were really successful. And that's kind of the takeaway from the season. Like, we can be successful. We just need to remember, kind of between the ears is our hardest battle. And going into next year and looking into the fall, we're going to do a lot of between the ears stuff, and pushing early. And even like the upperclassmen now, we're talking to the freshmen coming in and just being like, listen, like, this is what we do. This is how we do things. And so kind of that cultural set came into play, so it was good. Like, about being, more physically fit, getting into the gym, lifting more, stuff like that, so that we're all ready and we can, push at practice every day and kind of push a little bit more with numbers. That will help as well.
You got the new blood coming in. What can you say about how many you have coming in the recruiting class and where they're coming from?
I've got 10 coming in. If you put a pin and go about a 3-hour radius, that's where they're coming from. So I've got like 1 from Philly, 1 from Jersey, 2 from Long Island, 2 from the Binghamton area, 1 from Syracuse, 1 from the Watertown area. So just a hungry bunch of athletic girls that are really fun. I've gotten to watch a bunch of them over the last couple of weeks play with their high school teams as well. And just, I just think they're excited to come to Marywood. I think they're excited to be together. I was able, because of the end of COVID, like, bring these kids on campus so they were able to meet each other. They're going to get to come to orientation. So they'll get to not only meet each other again, but some of our upperclassmen are working orientation. It's like a twofold, but they're just excited. I think everybody's kind of excited, to have everybody going in the right direction. So it'll be good.
And that coming here from Kerrie Brown. Kerrie, final note here about that recruiting class coming in. What are you so excited about? Because I know obviously New York, you have ties there. You have a lot of love. You came up for a Syracuse women's lacrosse game here, got the team together, did a little team bonding thing. So what can you say about what you love about the recruiting trail and about, like you said, taking a couple kids from Binghamton in the Syracuse area, just what that's done for you, because you've had such a love and such a connection to the community that now you get to coach those pillars, those pieces, those things that meant something to you before. Now you get to bring that into your program and kind of show why you feel so connected.
Yeah, I mean, it's just kind of lacrosse I like to play. I like really athletic kids. I think, when you're born and raised around the stick, I think it makes it a little bit easier. And so it's not like a new sport or anything along those lines. It's more, you've kind of been around it your whole life. You've got, Syracuse right there, Lemoyne right there, all the high schools, Section 3, has a really good push. I just think it's just been around longer. They have grassroots programs. Same with like Long Island and like where I'm getting kids from now, more grassroots programs. And so like, I'm not trying to say a kid has to have a stick at 2 years old, but it's helpful in, elementary school when they have the exposure to it or their friends are playing it. So it's a choice, it's like, I play soccer, basketball, and lacrosse, as opposed to, I just saw lacrosse my junior year in high school and like I play. So or I did this and now I'm going to try lacrosse because it's like new. When it's a little bit more story, it's helpful. And so, I think it's just kind of, kids that have had it longer, had the exposure to it a little bit longer is just helpful, moving forward. And also it's played at a higher level, Northeastern PA, it's coming, but, within an hour of here, it hasn't really been here maybe for, 5-7 years, but back home and in New York, it's been around 25-30 years. And it's more of an option for kids as opposed to just like a new thing that they just picked up and decided to pick up as a hobby. Like it's more of a cultural thing. And so I'm excited about that.
Coming here from Kerrie Brown, Marywood Pacers women's lacrosse head coach on the recruiting trail, bringing in a lot of new blood for this upcoming season and navigating through and winning a couple of those last 3 games that they had, and obviously fighting in the Atlantic East. So Kerrie, I know there's positives to build off of. I know that you get really excited about getting on the trail. Your energy is awesome. And since I talked to you coming in, I remember that day of sitting with you the first time at Andy Gavin's. So I definitely appreciate what you've done for the program. I appreciate what you're building toward and navigating through it. And I appreciate the energy that you bring to Marywood University and the passion that you have for lacrosse. So in this edition of Pacer Pride, I want to say thank you for all the work that you've done and all those things that people don't see. And I look forward to it paying off on the field very soon.
Thanks so much for your support.